Good morning, everyone. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for the 13th day of December 2018. Well, being the 13th day, I view that as a master witch number. But then I was born on the 13th, and I'm a witch, so there you go. The 13 has always figured prominently in my life for some reason. Things seem to happen in 13s with me. I didn't really notice that until, I don't know, maybe I was in my 40s or something. And I started looking at, I just sort of became a little more interested in numerology during that time. I mean, I'd always been interested in it, but I don't know. I just started really thinking about it and started looking at patterns and discovered that that was true for me. So that's why I count 13 on when I pull a card, I count 13 and grab that card. So I just view it has power. Now, typically, though, you would reduce that to 4 or structure. So there you go. But I think that in terms of runes, let me look. Yeah, the 13th rune is I was. And let's see, let me take this one off here. That can be used for the backbone or the structure for a bind rune. So you can be used to tie an as above, so below energy to bind runes. So that's kind of and it's the 13th rune of the Elder Futhark. So there you go for structure. Or you can just think of it in terms of its witchiness or spiritual nature or what have you. But that's how I see 13. But ideally, most numerologists, they would reduce it to 4 and talk about foundations and structure and Mother Earth energy and things like that. So, and given that today's Thursday, we're looking at some expansive Jupiter energy. Jupiter rules Thursday. So it's energies of expansion and growth. Anything that's happening can be amplified by the energies of the planet Jupiter. So if you were to do magic today, you might work a prosperity spell or a healing spell or something like that. Thursday's a good day for that. You can get those energies of expansion to work for you. However, they can also work against you, so be aware of that as well. It's kind of why I don't do reversals on tarot or runes. I don't do that because I consider all aspects of the card. So I don't think that I know some tarot readers do that. They'll go ahead and they'll allow for reversals when they draw cards. So they'll just mix up the deck and they don't care how it falls out. And then they'll just read it as the opposite of what it might be otherwise, right? Well, I just think that although that's certainly a way you can do it and it works well. I'm not trying to say it doesn't work well because it does. It's just not how I see it. And I know other tarot readers see it the way I do as well. We just kind of look at it in terms of the wholeness of it. So we look at both sides. So I like to look at things, well, when it's going well, the positive would be this, and when it's not, it could be that. So, I just think that, it helps to see the entire picture of something. So I don't know, just me. So let's count 13 and see what we have for today. I'm so glad I bought this deck all over again. Well, we're going to draw another one. Queen of Swords. The queens in these decks are interesting. I'm going to take a moment to show you something here. Let's see, I'll take the Morgan Greer out. And my favorite, of course, Queen of Swords. Oh, there was a Queen of Pentacles right there. My favorite one is from the Thoth deck. Because there you have a queen who's, here you have the Queen of Swords here. And I'll just put this back. I'll see if I can find the Queen of Swords in the top deck, because I'll show you that it really matters who's doing the deck as to how this woman looks. But the Toth one I think is the best because it shows her reclining, and she's got a severed head in one hand and a sword in the other. And I believe that there's blood dripping from it, from the sword or from the head or both. I don't know. But it just really shows the power of the Queen of Swords, the power of our words, the power of our thoughts. All of that is just, it really, I think, is embodied in the Queen card. You know, you've got in the Rider-Waite, she's looking to the future, but in the Morgan Greer now, she's looking straight on. Now watch, it'll be clear back here. Oh, it was clear at the end. So I'll just go there and take it. Here we go. All right. Put this back there. Okay, so here, my favorite card. Yeah, see, I love her throne. She's in the clouds. There's crystals all around her. Look at that. And she's just, you know, like, meh, I'm done. Not going to deal with this fool anymore. Queens can be harsh. They can be benevolent. They can, usually, you know, it's an older woman, so right away, we've lived it, you know, we really have. And most of us really don't want to deal with any crap. And so you get to a certain age and it is just becomes less likely that you're going to. So, you know, but you've got the Queen here, and here's the Morgan Greer. You see how she's surrounded by roses, and I just love her crown, and I love her eyes. You know, she sees all, doesn't she? And she's got the sword right in front of her. You're like, here I am. I'm going to stand in my own power. And here you have pretty much the same thing, only she's looking to the future. Again, you see the clouds that you see in the Toth version. She's raising her hand pretty much in either authority or supplication or maybe benevolence. You just don't know. But she's intelligent, she's perceptive, she's honest. But when she's ill-dignified, you know, she can, you know, have her moments. And so, you know, maybe her off with the head moment. So anyhow. Well, we're going to draw another card to because it's a court card. We're going to draw another one. And we're going to get a little more information, either to interact with our queen or to give a little more information about what she's doing there. So keep in mind, again, court cards, it can be the individual on the card itself, you know, a woman in this case of authority, older, you know, a page is also known as a princess. And so just like the knight is also considered a prince in some decks. So you're looking at youth there. The king, of course, would be an older man of authority. Or you could look at all the qualities that, you know, perception in this case, and intuition, and communication, and authority even. Although that might be more, the Queen of Wands might be more about authority, but even the Queen of Swords has authority. She doesn't suffer fools gladly, as the expression goes. She's a witch. She's empathic, naturally empathic. So is and she shares that with the Queen of Wands, or the Queen of I'm going to say Wands, but the Queen of Cups. So you're talking about total emotion there. So you can see how, you know, when it's a positive side of the person, you know, they can be very effective, very perceptive, very, very assertive, standing in their own power. But then on the other side of it, maybe they can be manipulative and hurtful, and, you know, with their words, maybe they're not taking care how they talk to others, how they come across to others. So, you know, it just kind of all depends. You know, we like to see these things as individual suits and individual elements and individual, you know, natures, but in truth, they all sort of blend together. So anyhow, it's just that in this case, swords is going to be prominent. So let's do another one though. Well, we have the Empress, which is very cool. That's the third card. of the major arcana. And the Empress, of course, is motherhood. Now, it's also the mother principle. It's also creation and fertility and Genesis. Um, you can look at, if you look at the major arcana as a progression, okay? Sometimes, admittedly, I have a difficult time doing that. Maybe it's because of my background with runes. Those don't necessarily follow a progression, although sometimes they do. It depends. Um, but basically, you have the Fool that begins the journey, okay, and that's complete undeveloped potential. All things are possible, okay. Still a form of spirit that's manifesting into form at that point. We haven't gotten jaded by the ego yet. And so then we have the Magician and we have the High Priestess, and those are together. And that's the energetic genesis of who we are, right? And then it's the one and the two, you add them together, you get three, and you come up then with the Empress. Oh, yeah, the Empress. Okay. It's almost like you have the creation principles of the one and two come together to then create, you have father, mother creates the child, okay? And in this case, we see the Empress. And from there, you see the Empress creates the rest of the deck, essentially, okay? We have creation at this point, and from there, everything expands from there. And so that's what we're looking at when we look at the Empress. So then what does she have to do then with the Queen of Swords? Well, I think that what we have here is beginning and or maybe we have well, it's the mother principle for certain. So I wouldn't say maiden, mother, and crone, but in a sense, if you think of the Empress as the beginning of life, after the first two creation principles, one and two, then you have the three. That's your catalytic presence. That's bringing all of the creation energies together and manifesting. And that's what we did. We had the Empress then is the manifestation of the Magician and the High Priestess then. Those energies come together to create the Empress. So let's look at that. Let's look in the little grimoire here and see. I mean, we're talking abundance, love, happiness, pleasure, success, the mother aspect, receptive presence. Here, though, we don't have as much of a receptive presence. Here we have more of a male or projective type of a presence with swords. Now, if this were the Queen of Cups, then it would align better with the foundational elements of the Empress, or because what you have with her, she's also known as like the gate of heaven. She represents Venus and the moon both. Fertility, she's a door. You look at the one, well, I think in the Thoth deck is the one where you can see that there's more of a doorway. Also, I believe in the Heindel deck, they illustrate the Empress as a doorway. And what that's talking about, they're talking about more like the womb, really. And so it's the doorway to creation, okay? The doorway to manifestation. So if we talk about it from this standpoint, okay, that we're talking more about manifestation, all right, then what are we talking about here then? What is the Queen of Swords manifesting? So let's draw a third card and see if we can come up with what she's manifesting for today. I mean, it could either be about reason or fairness or cutting through the nonsense or whatever. I mean, maybe this is just to the point where we've gotten energetically to the point where we've just had enough and we want to cut through the nonsense and have a more reasonable approach to life, because with the Empress, all things are possible, aren't they? But then as we progress through life, maybe not so much. And sometimes it takes a woman, and I'm thinking Nancy Pelosi, to cut through the crap and get on to the things that matter in life. So I don't know. We'll see about that, though. Let's count 13 and see if we can get something else on a third card. So, I mean, if we look at this, we have the Fool. So if we look at this as a 13, we're looking at foundational issues then, aren't we? If we reduce that to 4. And so here we have the Fool. So we really have undeveloped potential. But for that to happen, we're going to have to cut through the BS of life. Okay? So I think that that's what we're talking about. I think that we want to get back to the idea that we are one energy, that we are as diverse as we are, that we all are source energy manifested in form, that we all come through the Empress, okay, and become what we are. All right? We have our mothers, right? We have the great mother, whether we look at this as Mother Earth and what we owe to her, or to the mothers in our lives and the influence that they've had. Most of the mothers, when they get to be my age, they want to cut through the crap and they don't want any more nonsense. But, you know, it is what it is. I think that more and more we're finding that happening with women of all ages, not just people my age. But basically, when we're talking about the Fool here, we have, if we look at this in terms of a progression, let's put this in terms of progression. We start with the Queen of Swords, then we give a little more information with the Empress, but then we see the Fool, and it almost like we're progressing back to our original intention here, isn't it? You know, that we're actually coming back to our elemental basics of being spirit and form. You know, the Fool, when the Fool comes into being, all things are possible. He's going to take, you can see him on the cliff there. He's going to take that leap of faith into the unknown. Well, then we have the two next cards then would be the Magician and the High Priestess. So we're bringing the energies of creation together, the alchemical process of creation together, linking as above, so below with the elements. You know, I look at the Magician as manifesting the elements, and I look at the High Priestess as bringing in as above, so below to that mix. And then from there we have the Empress, which tells us, you know, we're going to create something into form, basically. Or no, I'm sorry, that's the Queen of Swords. I moved the cards around. See, that's what happened. I had the Empress over there. So then we have the Empress, who we see Venus, which is fertility and love and harmony and happiness. And we see the Fool, who's ready to manifest all of that. But then we get to today, and if we're thinking about foundational stuff, maybe there's just a bunch of nonsense going on in our lives. You know, whether it's the greater political thing going on in our country, or whether it's just something going on in our lives. Maybe there's just a bunch of nonsense going on. And you're just feeling like you just want to cut through the crap and just get away from it, you know, and move on to something that is more grounding and more foundational and more structure oriented. And let's get back to organization. And, you know, maybe your house is a mess and you just need to clean up, you know, whatever it is. There's evidently, we went from the standpoint of being able to do this in a way that was inclusive and loving and harmonious and keeping all that energy around us, to maybe needing to just say, wait, here's how it's going to be now, because the kids have gotten out of control and they've destroyed the house, and now you got to clean it all up, you know. So metaphor for life, basically, whether you got kids or not at home, it doesn't matter. I don't anymore. But the point is that if we have a bunch of chaos going on, you know, we had the chance to show that we don't need that. So that is still present in our lives. We can always return to that basic foundational structure of life, you know, of who we are as embodiment of source energy, focused into form. So it's just that as life goes on, ego gets in the way and things get a little crazy, and pretty soon nobody's remembering that they're spirit, and that they could do better than what they're doing. And so then ego gets in the way and a bunch of stuff and nonsense happens, and pretty soon the queen's got to come in and, you know, say enough. Don't you just love that? That is just the coolest card ever. I love the queens in any deck. It doesn't matter. Even if they depict her in the more pagan oriented decks as an animal, it doesn't matter. They're beautiful cards, and they're filled with so much imagery. But anyhow, let's take a look at the rune and see how that, you know, aligns or doesn't. maybe offers another aspect to this. But whenever I see the Queen of Swords, it's like, okay, there's a bunch of BS going on. We got to cut through the BS and get on with it. So rationality can come back. Sometimes queens can be a buzzkill for those that don't wish to settle down. Here we have Ewas. Not to be confused with Iwas, which is the 13th. This is Ewas, which is the 19th. This comes right after Birkenau. And Birkenau is really resonates with the Empress. That's a goddess of fertility rune, basically. But Ewas, you can see, it's comprised of lagus forward and reversed to create an M-looking thing. So right there, because it resembles lagus, right there you know that it's going to be a water element rune. Being 19, it reduces to 1, so new beginnings. But basically, Menas is about abrupt change, and let's face it, you know, she can certainly bring that, can't she? It can also be about safe travel. It also represents Odin's horse Sleipnir, which Sleipnir was reported to have 8 legs, supposedly, and Odin would ride Sleipnir through the air. Well, obviously, it was not an 8-legged horse named Sleipnir. It was, in fact, a ship of some kind because Odin was someone who visited here. So I don't believe Odin was actually born here. So I think that they came and they either they were part of, either it's just another name or the same folks that were here at that time on planet, or you had a bunch of different ones, maybe, I don't know. But Odin and his group settled up in the Norse area, Norway and up in there. But it's also rumored that he came there periodically. So if that's the case, these people may just have other names that were given to them in other areas. It may all be the same people. So I don't know. I've not been able to figure that one out. I suspect that there may be more truth to him being the same person that lived in Egypt and just traveled there. Okay. So maybe they lived all over the place and they took on different names depending on where they were, or the people that were there gave them different names. Maybe, I don't know. But basically, when we talk about Manas, or not Manas, Ewas, you're looking at the Merkaba, the physical Merkaba that our soul travels in, the greater auric field that apparently takes the shape of a Merkaba, perhaps. It's also said to be an egg shape or an oval shape. But basically, it's about movement and partnership and movement over obstacles and how we relate to one another. When you look at the lagus component of that, you know, you're looking at something that's about energy flow. When you think the water element, it's about energy flow. Spending more time in allowing than in resisting. When we resist, then we stop and we're unable to then continue on. If we remain obstinate about something, if we're remaining in resistance. If we allow things to just be, then they flow. And sometimes the cycle, you know, if you look at a biorhythm chart, you see the sine waves, and you'll see a bunch of them because they deal with different things, emotions and intellect and physicality and all of that. So you're going to see a bunch of different sine waves if you do a biorhythm chart. Well, what that's telling you is that moods and physicality and everything about us, the energy about us, moves in waves, okay? And so if you're somebody that is reactionary, then you want to make sure that you're not reacting at a time where you're in the peak and the valley of those waves. You want to do it on the upswing and the downswing. You want to be right in the middle. That's where you want to have your reactions, because you're going to have less emotion, less trying to reason it out in a way that suits you instead of what's really real. You're going to have, whole mind, body, spirit working for you in those sections of the biorhythm chart than you are in the peaks and the valleys. So if you manifest Ewas in your life, then what you're concerned about is letting the flow exist. Okay. sometimes you don't necessarily, like you would with Thurisaz, blast through an obstacle. Okay, when we think of Thurisaz, we think of Thor's hammer, and of course we've seen it in the movies where the Thor's hammer swings around and creates all kinds of destruction. Well, I mean, he's not going out there just being destructive. He's dealing with issues that are, and he's doing it in a defensive manner. So it's, it's basically self-defense is how he's using the hammer. Well, same sort of energetic experience with the rune Thurisaz. It's about breaking through. Well, Ewaz is about kind of moving around it. I mean, here you can kind of look at the rune itself like it sort of meanders about, doesn't it? I mean, there's points, but you could just as easily round those points and have it be something where you just move. Okay, I've reached this, I'm going to go this way now, and I've reached that. Well, I'm going to go that way now. I reached that way, I'm going to go that way now. So that's kind of what it's telling us to do, is to be a little easier in our lives and not have to get to this point, But if you do, well, then deal with life with integrity and just from the standpoint of, okay, can we at least not have a bunch of deceit, a bunch of lies, a bunch of chaos and a bunch of manipulation? Can we just stop and proceed on in a way that's fair and reasonable and is balanced and all of that. So that's really what this is saying. We have all of this undeveloped potential that is still there waiting to come out. We are still spirit focused into form. That is never going to change, no matter what the ego tries to convince us of. And so the Queen of Swords is just saying, look, there's a lot of deception going on. You can see the clouds, right? But she's going to sit there and say, you know what? We're going to be above this, and we're going to cut through the nonsense. We're going to cut through the deception of life, and we're going to get back to what we really need to be doing. And that's in creating abundance for everybody, and doing it in a way that is less resistive and more allowing. We can allow the spirit to come forth. It's when we resist that ego is taking over. So allowing is just staying aligned in source presence and just sort of is sitting back and observing and going, oh, that's interesting. And just not getting involved in it unless we absolutely have to. And then we can be the queen, hold up our sword and say enough. I prefer, instead of a sword, okay, where's my athame? Let me see if I can find my athame, and I will show you what I use. Well, I don't know what I've done with it, but I have more than one. I'll show you one that is really cool, but I want to get the other one because my husband made that one for me, and I'm not sure what I did with it. So let me just look over here. It's not here. But anyway, being a martial artist, I have lots of swords out in our dojo to choose from because I was just one of these martial artists that liked weapons, and consequently, my husband was all too happy to either make them for me or to buy them for me. So, but I don't know where my athame went. I thought that I had it over here in this box, but I don't know. It's very cool. He made it from a bandsaw blade, and I just couldn't believe it. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And I'm not sure what I did with it. Let me look behind the computer. No, it's not there. Well, that's just so odd. It's really heavy, and it has this really cool hook on the end of it, but I don't see it anywhere. Let me look back here. Well, I'm going to have to find it, aren't I? Can't do rituals without my athame. I'm just not sure what I've done with it. I wonder if it's back in the other altar. Well, in any event, I'm sorry about that. I really wanted to show you that because it's really cool. Nope, not there. Not up there. Not there. Hmm. Well, somewhat disturbing. Anyway, maybe I'll have it for you Monday and show it to you. This is fun. This is just one. This can be an athame. This is a nice one. Athames are ritual daggers, is what they are, and they are really cool because they represent the fire element, and you can use them in ritual. You can use them in magic, and they're just nice. I have several, but my favorite, of course, is the one that my husband made me. I just wish I could find that one. I don't know what I've done with it. I don't think I had it anywhere. Well, that's odd. Anyway, I don't think I would have put it down here. It's sharp, so I have to be careful where I set it. Otherwise, anyhow, that's okay. So anyway, I guess that's what I guess that's what we'll think about then today, though, is trying to be a little easier about things, and moving around them instead of trying to meet them necessarily head on. You know, if this had been the card, if I'd been using this deck, then I might say meet them head on, but I don't think so. I think here, since she's looking not directly at us, I think that it indicates that there can be other ways of dealing with things. You can establish that, this is what I want. I'm not going to deal with anything, any more nonsense from whatever is going on. I'm just going to go ahead and sit back and allow, but at the same time set boundaries, and say, look, this is not what I'm going to do. You just don't have to be extraordinarily confrontational about it, because when the queen is ill-dignified, she can just really get into it. I don't know if it's just that women have just had enough. I don't know. Maybe that's why the queen of swords is the way that she is. That it just recognizes that eventually women just get to the point where they just don't want to hear anymore. They just want everything to be calm and happy. They want their family together. They want things to be going well. They understand that it doesn't always happen that way, but there's got to come a point where it does. And I think that women spend a lot of time waiting for that. We spend a lot of time waiting for people to come to their senses and figure it out. And because when women become assertive, especially when they become assertive with men, it doesn't always play well. Men have decided that women aren't supposed to do that, and men are just supposed to be the ones that call the shots. Well, you guys don't do a very good job of it. I mean, I don't know if you knew that, but it's true. You don't do a good job of it. A lot of the time, you get carried away with things that don't matter. You start thinking in terms of us versus them instead of the we of all of it, and you don't see the bigger picture that a woman can see. It's sad that we've never had a female president in this country, because I think that we would see a different mindset at work. Well, I know we would, than what we've always had. You might see less warlike responses. I mean, maybe not. Maybe we need a transition period where women have to figure who they're going to be in a position of authority like that. But at the same time, if we don't move in that direction, we're going to constantly have this lack of balance. And it's brought by an energetic pattern that can't turn itself off. You know, they can't say they're wrong. They can't turn any of it off. And so when you see the Queen of Swords, when that comes up in a reading, that's really telling me that, hey, we need to stop. We need to stop and think about what we're doing and look at something in a more rational fashion, and just cut through the crap. We all know what doesn't work. It shouldn't take an older woman to explain this to you, but we all know what works and doesn't work. And whenever we try to do things in a way that divides us, it's never going to work. It just isn't. And so maybe what we're trying to see today with Ewas, uh, coming together in partnership and easiness and joy and love and all of that, uh, it's what we had as a possibility, wasn't it? Okay, with the Fool. And with the Empress coming up, this is our foundation. The foundation is one of unity, not division. So I'm thinking that it's kind of an interesting reading. It's kind of taking things from a here we are standpoint to this is what we really are, reinforced by Ewas, which is just a wonderful rune that just it just brings calm. It's just right after Birkenau. You can chant Birkenau to bring a sense of calm to you. Well, what is that telling us? You know, it's telling us that we have that this is still within us. We just need to cut through the crap to get back to it. Okay? So, anyway, good enough for today. All right. So, I will be back on Monday. Thanks so much for watching. If you're new, thanks so much for coming. Click subscribe. I'd love you to do that. If you've been here before, thanks for coming back, putting up with me. Anyhow, have a wonderful weekend, and be good to yourself, be good to others, and blessed be.